Good evening. An embattled officer now facing some bombshell accusations in a federal suit. The officer, Brian Burton, once an undercover detective, now demoted.
Yeah, we first told you the first details about the lawsuit last night. And tonight, for the first time, an informant tells her story of sexual harassment and threats to 24-hour News 8's Brad Edwards. He's live now outside the federal court building. Brad.
Good evening. This is where it was filed, a bombshell of allegations to no one's real surprise. After all, one of the defendants has had a lot of defending himself to do. The civil suit claims a woman's rights, her civil rights, were violated by cops after she went to cops and helped them. The black and white of a federal complaint alleging sexual harassment and more. Life ran amok when she went to help police.
My whole family's been ripped apart.
This, Tony Twyman's first interview. She was troubled when it began, a drinking and driving conviction, lost custody of her kids. Then she thought a neighbor was dealing drugs to her son. She entered Franklin PD, told Detective Brian Burton, then became an informant.
If you help me, I will get rid of your charges and I will get your kids back for you. I'll do anything for my kids. Anything I do for my kids.
Not so long after,
I felt trapped in a situation that I could not get out of. He told me if I didn't do what he said, he'd make sure I went to prison.
Her suit against Burton and Officer Ryan Mears. It alleges then Detective Burton repeatedly touched her breasts while fitting her with a wire, exposed himself, even placed a sex toy in her car and laughed when she unknowingly sat on it, and more.
He should have never been in that position to begin with.
Her lawyer, Richard Waples.
The allegations you outline are pretty egregious.
They're serious charges. I mean, you got an officer here who is out of control.
Franklin PD with no comment from the chief's office. A Fire Burton page has popped on Facebook, 370-plus fans. A challenging Burton for Chief page has 70 supporters. In March, 24-hour News 8 reported Burton was accused of drinking on duty, supplying beer and booze to underage informants, and not reporting an accident he was in while on duty, while he was illegally driving a confiscated car. Back then, the mayor defended what some thought indefensible for a law enforcer.
I also don't believe that you necessarily throw away a career or throw away an individual for making bad decisions and stepping over the line.
Poor judgment crossed the line, said the mayor, but not fired. Burton seemingly had a Teflon veneer in Franklin.
What happened to Tony seems to be consistent with what he's done to other people.
In the end, Twyman says Burton was put in charge of her, became her probation officer. In her words,
he called me the next morning and he said, I'm your new daddy. So you wake up and you call me. You go to sleep, you call me.
She went to cops to bust the person she thought was selling drugs to her son, and now this.
I was only getting involved to help my son, and ultimately I lost him. It's hard for me to go on a daily basis.
The main goal of the suit, they say, is the removal of the officers. As for Officer Burton, with a record internally poor enough to have been demoted and at one point in time suspended without pay, tonight he is paid and on the job. Reporting live tonight from the federal courthouse in Indianapolis, Brad Edwards, 24-hour News 8.